Hi, on today's episode of Cooking Wild, we are going to make antelope tenderloin, asparagus with baby red potatoes, and a turtle cheesecake brownie. Stick around because we're going to be cooking wild. So we are going to make antelope tenderloin. I'm going to cook it like you would cook a basic steak in a cast iron skillet. We have them thawed out and I have brought them to room temperature. It's always best to bring any steak or cut of meat like this to room temperature because it cooks easier and it cooks more evenly. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of pat these dry with a paper towel. And I have my cast iron skillet preheating. I've got it turned up to high. And I am going to put a little bit of vegetable oil in my cast iron. So we've got the steaks patted dry. I've got about quarter cup of vegetable oil, and I'm gonna put this in my cast iron. The key and the trick for any steak when you cook it in a cast iron is getting your skillet to the right temperature. It has to be really, really hot to get a good sear on both sides. So as this is heating up, I'm gonna go ahead and season the tenderloin. I have got kosher salt, olive oil, and I'm gonna do just a little bit of ground pepper. So let's go ahead and pepper both sides. And I'm also going to put a steak seasoning on each side. This is actually Montreal steak seasoning. So we're gonna do kosher salt on both sides. And get this temperature. And I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of olive oil just to try to get the flavors to hold and infuse in here. Just kind of pat it out. And kind of press down on the coarse kosher salt and seasonings, and it kind of embeds into the meat and it'll give it a good crust. And as these are cooking in my cast iron skillet, I'm going to go ahead and mix up the butter that I'm going to put in my cast iron skillet while my steak is cooking. I'm going to put thyme, rosemary, and garlic and kind of infuse my butter with it, and then I'm going to put it into the steak as it's cooking, and I'm just going to kind of spoon it over for flavor. So I've got, about 1/4 of a stick of butter here. And I've got about a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more of crushed garlic, a teaspoon of rosemary, and a teaspoon of thyme. And I'm just gonna kind of mash it in here together and get it kind of mixed up in here where I can put it in there, and it'll give our steak a really good seasoning and flavor. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's going to melt and just infuse the flavors. So the reason why I chose antelope is because it's very similar to deer, which is what we grew up eating a lot of. And deer tenderloin, if you've never had it, it's wonderful. And so that is the why I chose the antelope, is because I wanted to cook something that was similar and that kind of brought back the nostalgia of being a kid and growing up. So I think I've got my pan heated to temperature. Mind you, this is gonna be very hot. We're gonna sear it on each side. Our steak is about 3/4 of an inch thick. So we're gonna only cook it about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes per side, because we don't want to get it too done. So I'm gonna go ahead, get these in here. And we're going to let them cook 1.5 minutes, 2 on each side, depending on your preference. You can use a meat thermometer if you're not sure and you want to test the internal temperature. Medium rare is anywhere from about 135 degrees to 145 degrees. So you can just stick it in the thickest part of the steak, and that should give you a pretty good reading on the doneness of the steak. Once I flip it over, then I'll go ahead and add my seasoned butter, and we'll just kind of spoon it over the top and let it just really infuse that flavor. Let it cook here for about another minute or so. And if you've never cooked steak in a cast iron, I would highly recommend it. It is the best and easiest way to cook a steak, aside from if you're gonna grill, is get you a good cast iron skillet, and it will last you a lifetime, and it makes a really good steak. So I think we've had it on here about 1.5 minutes, maybe 2. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it. Actually, it's not quite as brown as I would like it to be. I'm gonna leave it there for about another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll flip it and do the other side. Got it on high. I'm just gonna stick this in the center just to get a reading on it. So we've cooked it about halfway, and it was reading about 75 degrees in the center. So we got a good golden crust. We're gonna go ahead and flip it. And we're gonna leave it on this side about another 2 minutes or so. And I am going to put my garlic and thyme and rosemary infused butter. Just gonna do little dollops on each side of the pan. And as that melts down, I'll kind of tilt this pan a little bit, and I'll just scoop it up and we'll spoon it over the top. Once your steak is done, you always want to allow it to rest 5-10 minutes. It helps hold the flavor in, and it keeps it juicy. So it's always good to let it rest for just a little bit before you cut into it. So you can see that my butter is starting to melt down. As it does, I'm going to just kind of tilt my skillet a little bit. Just kind of spoon that over the top. Give it that good flavor. And they always say that if you cook a steak right, that you don't need seasoning or that you don't need a steak sauce with it. So we're not going to do a sauce at all with this one. It's just going to be wonderfully flavored and beautifully cooked. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of do a reading to see where we're at on the temperature. Like I said, you want to stick it into the thickest part of the meat. Okay, so it's about at a 120 right now, and we want it to get to about 135, 145 to get a medium rare with some pink in it. Not too bloody. So we've had it on here about 2 minutes or so. Go ahead and get a reading on this. Looks like we're right there, 142. So I'm gonna go ahead, pull this off. See that nice brown? I'm gonna lay it there. And we are going to let this rest before we cut into it. And our steak is done, and we will be right back after this break. Welcome back. For a side dish to go with our antelope steak, I am going to make asparagus and red potatoes. I'm gonna give y'all a little trick on potatoes. I've been doing this for years. Some people don't know that you can actually do this, but you can do it with any potato, but I just take and just poke a few holes in the potatoes, and then I wrap them loosely in like a plastic grocery store sack, and I pop them in the microwave for a minute or two. And it actually steams them and cooks them soft, and it is definitely a time saver. And in the summertime, it keeps you from heating up your house trying to bake potatoes because they take a long time. So I've got little holes poked in all of the potatoes, and I'm going to put them in the bottom of this plastic sack, and I'm just gonna kind of just loosely tuck that under, and I'm gonna set it in the microwave like this and microwave about 2 minutes until they're fork tender. Now that we have our potatoes out of the microwave, you can tell that they're tender, fork tender. I'm gonna let them cool off for just a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and prep my asparagus. Trim the ends of this asparagus off, then I'll rinse it, and then we're going to cook it as well in the cast iron skillet. I'll get about half of this. So we have our asparagus rinsed, and I am going to put it right here into this bowl. And I am going to season it with a little bit of olive oil, some black pepper, and some sea salt. I'm just gonna kind of toss it around. So I'm doing this, I've got my cast iron heating up, and I am going to put a little bit of butter, the rest of my olive oil, enough of butter in there. Toss this up. I'm gonna pick this up to about between medium and high. To put my asparagus. And as my asparagus is cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and season it just a little bit more. I am going to cut up or cube up these red potatoes. And we are going to toss them in at the end with our asparagus. So our asparagus is just about done. It is cooking in olive oil and butter. And I am going to just toss these potatoes in with it. Mind you, they're already cooked because we put them in the microwave earlier. So they're already softened up. We're just gonna toss them in there. And I reserved some of the butter and seasonings from our steak. And I'm just gonna put just a little bit over the top, just to kind of infuse those flavors as well. I like to add red potatoes to things that I cook that are green because it just gives it a really good visual. So a lot of times if I'm making green beans or peas or something, I will incorporate some baby reds. Okay, our asparagus and baby reds are done. So I'm gonna go ahead and plate them. I am all about reserving flavor, so I'm going to take what is left of the flavoring in my cast iron and kind of just drizzle it over our potatoes. and asparagus. And I am gonna top them off with a little bit of fresh grated Parmesan. And then we will be right back and get started on our dessert.
Whether your roads are dirt, paved, or if you're blazing new trails, the roads we travel lead to all of our most cherished places and people. Bravado Wireless strives to keep you connected wherever the roads may take you. We are the leader in wireless mobility and connection in Oklahoma and across the nation. We carry some of the market's top cell phone brands, fast, reliable home internet, and even greater customer service. Locally owned and operated right here in eastern Oklahoma. So whatever roads you travel, Bravado Wireless has them covered. From beginning to end. We are Bravado Wireless, and we believe in the power of connection.
So I am going to make turtle brownie cheesecake bars for dessert. This is a dessert that one of my coworkers actually brought to a luncheon, and I absolutely loved it. So I got her recipe, and you can tweak it and change out different elements of it. But what we're going to start with is one chocolate cake, one box of chocolate cake or bag, whatever. That's what this is right here. So we're going to put that in here. That's your chocolate cake. And then this is 1 stick of melted butter. That in there. I've got my oven preheating at 350 because this is going to go in the oven here in just a minute. And then 1 egg. Okay, I'm going to mix this up. And then I'm going to spread it into this pan for the first layer. And then we'll start on the second. So this is 1 chocolate cake. This is just regular, but you can do like a fudgy, just whatever your preference is. And it's going to be about the consistency of fudge when you get it good and mixed up. Okay, so we've got that mixed up. And this is just going to spread out in the bottom of our pan. I'm just using a aluminum foil pan just for easy cleanup. Also, if you're taking it as a dessert to go, you could just leave this. You don't have to worry about trying to get your Tupperware back or anything. Spread this out in the bottom of the pan as evenly as you can get it. You can serve this warm with vanilla ice cream, but it's wonderful just by itself. It's so good. Okay, so we got the first layer done. And the second layer is 1 block of softened cream cheese. This is 8 ounces of softened cream cheese. And this is 16 ounces of powdered sugar, confectioner's sugar. You can get it in like the 16-ounce boxes, and it's also equivalent to 3.5 cups. So we're going to add our confectioner's sugar to the softened cream cheese, and then we're going to do 2 eggs in this. And I will just mix this up real good. And this is going to go on top of our chocolate layer. This is basically going to be your cheesecake layer. And once you get it all put together, it's going to bake at 350 for about 40-45 minutes, depending on your oven. The center will still be soft when you get done with it, when you take it out. Kind of gooey, but it's supposed to be. And it kind of sets up a little bit after you get it out. I'm just stirring this to try to get out or break up as many of the cream cheese clumps that you have in there. The softer your cream cheese is, the easier this is going to be. So this is going to be our second layer. Just top up the chocolate. Spread it out. And then the next step is we're gonna put the pecans on top. You can do whole pecans, crushed pecans. I have whole pecans and I'm just gonna give them a rough chop. This is a cup. Just a rough chop. We'll do the rest of them. Okay, this is going to go in the oven for about 35, 40 minutes. And then when we get it out, I'm going to melt some caramel chips and we're gonna drizzle caramel over the top of it.
From nationwide coverage to live high school sports to the great outdoors and so much more, we've got something for you. We're a local wireless carrier right here in Oklahoma. We work for your town, in your town. But great cell phone signal in rural areas is just scratching the surface. We also broadcast live events from all over eastern Oklahoma. High school football, basketball, baseball, dirt track races, livestock shows, and community events. Everything to keep you connected in your community. We're also producing original shows like Connect Outdoors and Cooking Wild that shines a light on real Oklahoman experiences. You can find us at bravadowireless.com, or you can search for us on Facebook or YouTube. You can even find us on the Oklahoma Sports Network. You can download their app straight to your phone, Apple TV, Smart TV, or Roku. We don't just create for Oklahoma, we are Oklahoma. We're Bravado Wireless, Oklahoma's service provider.
So we have pulled our turtle brownie cheesecake bars out of the oven and they smell delicious. And I am going to go ahead and mix up our caramel sauce that we are going to drizzle over the top. So I have some caramel chips. And I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of water. I'm gonna pop these in the microwave a minute and stir, and then another 30 seconds and stir until I get to the consistency that I want it. These are very easy melting in the microwave and you don't have to mess with the stovetop. So I have my caramel sauce, nice and melted, just came out of the microwave and it is hot. And I am going to just drizzle it over the top of our brownie cheesecake. And this is really good. Served with vanilla ice cream. Of course, you don't have to, because it's really sweet and rich all on its own. So we have our turtle brownie cheesecake, and we're going to serve it up with some vanilla ice cream. I hope you enjoyed cooking with me today. To view more episodes and some other original shows, head over to bravadowireless.com. I'm Amber, and we've been cooking wild.